I don't have a trainer or anything you need to ride indoors, but with all the craziness going on, it looks like I'm finally going to need to bite the bullet and get set up to train inside. So my question, what do you recommend I get? I have a small Cervelo P3 and live in an apartment, if that makes any difference.
It does.
Yes, that does. In which ways, Nate, that come to mind?
So because you're in an apartment, the noise of the floor could, like the noise of the trainer, could make a big difference. And there's two really quiet trainers. One is the Four Eyes Flight. That's like pretty much silent, but you need you can't have a carbon rear wheel. You need like a metal rear wheel. And the other one is the Tax Neo. That one is extremely quiet too and low vibrations. Both of those are very good for in an apartment option. Two different price options, price levels too. So I would recommend either one of those. You probably don't want an old kicker or wheel on kicker, one of the older, anything like that, because you'll get like a vibration, and that vibration, if you don't have nice neighbors, they could be complaining, and then you just can't use that trainer anymore, which is no fun.
My brother just had that happen. He lives in an apartment, and the tricky thing is now a lot of people like you used to just like maybe not train during the evening or something like when everybody was home, but now since everybody's home during the day and probably working, it's kind of hard. Like so it's definitely something to consider. My wife has the Neo 2 and I know they have the Neo 2T, which I think is even quieter, but Sarah, all I hear is Sarah's drivetrain when she's on that bike. And if you touch the trainer, it actually doesn't have any like vibration going on. It's pretty crazy. Like if you touch
That's
down
impressive.
by the feet. Yeah. So yeah, really good tip on that. Also, the one thing though with the Cervelo P3, if it's a small, some TT bikes can be really tough to fit, especially on the Tax Neo in particular, because the chain stays, and I'm using my hands here, and I realize that a lot of you are listening to this and not watching on YouTube, but the chain stays are pretty beefy on triathlon bikes. They tend to be pretty big, and increasingly more so on all bikes. So a lot of the time it's tougher for them to clear the body of the trainer because it kind of extends pretty far forward. So that's one thing if you can, and I know it's really tough right now because you probably can't go to a bike shop, but scour the internet and see what other people have done maybe for your specific bike just to see if that is a potential issue. I know that Tax with the first Neo, it was bigger and then they narrowed it down intentionally for that very thing to try to make it so that it was more compatible with more bikes. So you may be fine, but it's worth considering.
Yeah,
What
and
were
I
you
would
gonna say,
just,
Nate?
yeah, you just email Tax. They'll tell you right away.
Yeah,
Your
that's a
bike
good
shop may
approach.
also even know. A lot of bike shops are still open, and you can just give them a call and see if they've had any experience with it too.
So that's like that's more of a high budget option, and I figure this is probably a good opportunity for us to talk about like low, mid level, and high budget setups that you could do for indoor training. Since a lot of people are now that are listening to this or that haven't trained indoors are now going through that whole process of what do I get, and it can be overwhelming because there's so many trainers. Like you have a ton of choice. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I have strong opinions on this.
Where do you want to start with this, Nate?
Let's start with one thing: is getting a power meter. Like a lot of people are like, I need to be in erg mode. Erg mode is a luxury in some cases, but other cases, I like to not be in erg mode. John actually just uses rollers, so if you have a choice between a power meter that you can use indoors and outdoors, or an erg trainer inside, choose that power meter every time first. Like that's very important.
Completely agree.
I think we're all in agreement with that, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really not that hard to. So at first, when you get a power meter, you'll be like, "Wow, the numbers are more bouncy than I thought." You'll get used to that. You'll add 5-second power smoothing, something like that. It'll start to stabilize, and you'll actually be able to hit your power targets with the same precision that you would without erg with time. Like it's for me when I finish and I get my interval summary on TrainerRoad, they are no more correct or incorrect with whether I'm using erg or not. So you can still get in the same quality workout. Like you said, Nate, it can be a luxury at times, like especially if you're like doing a low intensity workout and watching something or getting caught up in the conversation with your friends during group workouts, something like that. It can be a luxury just to not have to worry about matching your power target, but you can still absolutely do it and get the same quality, get just as fast without erg.
So the next, so if you have that, and then I would recommend a fluid trainer, and two that we really like are the Kinetic Road Machine or the CYCLIST Jet Fluid Pro. And a lot of people, if they got like a smart trainer, those might be easy to get on like Craigslist for very inexpensive because they're just sitting in people's houses. So that's a good option. If you can't, if you can only afford one of those and you want to train inside, we also have virtual power. And for that, the best slope that we have would be the Kinetic row machine. That thing's, and the jet fluid plug. Both of those are very, very stable. So if you don't have if you can't afford a power meter and you just want to get going with training inside, you can use virtual power, keep everything set up. You can't compare your numbers to other people, but you can have precision. So between workouts, it can be the same numbers, and you can train just like you had a power meter, but not outside for the cheapest. And for that, what you need is a speed sensor. And there's Garmin or other Bluetooth speed sensors, pretty cheap right now. That's all you need. Mm-hmm. Next stage up. Go ahead.
Just for all our talk, you might get the impression that we think everyone needs a wheel-off smart trainer, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Because for the longest time, I rode a road machine and then the rock and roll version of it. I absolutely loved that trainer. Mm-hmm. We've gravitated since then toward the smart trainers, but they are not by any means the only solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for most of my career, I was on a Kinetic road machine.
They feel so good. They still feel like the feel of them in terms of like when you're spinning, the inertia, everything else, they still feel better than many smart trainers. They may not have the control, but they feel better. So, yep.
And then for like inexpensive power meter, single side, Stages and 4Eyes are good options. 4Eyes just did a price lowering like yesterday. Yeah. So they're like Stages and 4Eyes are going back and forth with lowering prices. So as a consumer, you're pretty stoked on that. And I believe even right now, 4Eyes is still doing factory install. So you can send them. They send you like a little shipping thing, and then you send in the crank, and then they install a power meter, and you get it back. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool. And then
one thing on that really quick, Nate. I actually put that on my on my SB 150. My mountain bike. And one thing to know with this is that they can install it on drive or non-drive. And when you contact them about doing a factory install, they'll instruct you on finding out which one is better. In our minds, we think like we would never want it it's always on the non-drive. It's like what's in our minds. But it's no more difficult for them to install it on drive or non-drive. And depending on your application, it might be better. So for me, on my mountain bike, I couldn't fit it on the non-drive. And they have me check by basically taking a AAA battery and seeing if I could fit that AAA battery in between my frame and my crank arm. And if I couldn't, then I shouldn't put the power meter on that side. And I couldn't do it on the non-drive, but I could on the drive. So anyways, it's a really cool option too. Not only is it really accessible in terms of price, but it's cool because if you have like a tricky situation with trying to get a power meter on, that can be a flexible option.
And then for the high, like the smart trainer stuff, okay, I'll probably get flack from companies from saying this, but I'm just going to say it. Go for the high end. At this moment of this recording, there's trade-offs of getting a smart trainer that's mid-range. Like the high end is better, and I would either like save up for that or just go for the fluid trainer, the quote dumb trainer, then get a mid-range that you might not be happy with long term. I personally hate buying things twice. You ever buy like a tool and then you use it and then it doesn't work how you want it, then you buy another tool that's better later and you just end up buying it twice? That is like, to me in my mind, I just can't stand that. So that is where I'm coming from. And for the high budget ones, Chad and I like the H3. Like that is the trainer that I use all the time.
That one's popular around the office in general. That seems like right now it's one that people really
love
like.
That trainer.
I know, and I can't believe it's not more popular in the market because I think it's fantastic.
Yeah,
it's got the huge flywheel, so it just feels like riding outside. There's the H2. And the difference between the two of those is the H3 is quieter. So
it's impressively quiet.
Yeah, but if you don't have an option or an issue with like quiet, if you can find an H2 right now, that is the deal. That's a very cheap deal. High-end kicker, good choice too. Neo, really like that one. And then Jonathan, you've been using the Elite Nero rollers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're pretty darn good. They have. We're actually going to build some specific things for them, and it's something that people don't know. Nate probably is that we actually build in some cases specifically for specific smart trainers. Like so, we understand that. For example, like the Saurus H3, because every smart trainer, when you start an interval, for example, they tend to lag a little bit, right? And then it brings your power up. So we know that certain trainers take a little bit.
You're giving away our secrets. Nice. It's okay. I'm joking.
Okay, yeah. I was
I've
like,
said
all right,
this
should I not
before
say
online.
this? Okay,
And John's
cool.
like, oh, we'll cut this out.
What am I supposed to do? But
I've never stopped you cold like that.
I know, yeah, that's what it was a shock. But the thing about that is that we've built specifically for specific trainers to give like a better experience. So I'm going to be working with our team to build specifically for the Neros. But I really like rollers a lot, and they sucked at first, and everything was really hard, and I felt like I couldn't hit my power targets. It was really tricky, and I just did them kind of on the side for fun for a bit. And then I got to the point where that cognitive load completely went away, and I don't think of it anymore, except for when I almost fall off in the middle of the DC Rainmaker live stream. But I don't think of it anymore. And as a result, I find that like there's a lot of benefits to them, and we've talked about it before, but they've never had smart control. And I know a lot of people just want smart control in one regard, erg, basically. And these are the first ones that do it, and they do it really well. In my experience of riding this and then riding the Diretto, I think that might be the highest end elite trainer right now. Both of those, they perform almost exactly the same, which kind of makes sense because I'm sure that they use similar hardware, similar firmware. So I like them a lot. It is a high-end option, though. They're not cheap. I want to say they're like over $1,000. So it's not a cheap option, but if you're looking for something unique with erg, that's one. For sure.
And then for power meters, the best resource is to go to DC Rainmaker, and he has a roundup, and like there's pros and cons to every power meter and like price, and it's updated. So just go to his article. He does a big rundown, and I mean, he is a legit trusted journalist. I would just go to him. We even look at what he says too. So that's my recommendation for power meters.
Absolutely. So this is a work from home scenario right now. I apologize. A printer just woke up next to me, and if it's making a bunch of noise, I'm so sorry. We're all in this together. So for all of us too, along those lines too, with power meters, Nate, I think it's fair to say that like power meters themselves, like it's not like one is like, oh, this one has like, we've talked about it before, like left-right balance. So this one is way worth it in terms of like spending a lot more money on it because it has these little things. In my mind, it's all just as long as it's consistent. That's the main thing. And when you look at things like Garmin, if you look at the PowerTap P1 pedals, Favero Asioma pedals, then Quarks, Stages, Four Eyes, like Power 2 Max, like the known brands, I think that we've all had pretty good experiences across the board with those. So
Yep.
If you go for something obscure on Kickstarter, I don't know if that'll work or not. So if you like that video, you should subscribe to our channel. There's more where that came from. And even like the video down below with a thumbs up or leave us a comment.
If you want to see race analysis videos, click right over here. And if you want to get your coaching questions answered, click over here.
And if you want to become a faster cyclist, head over to TrainerRoad.com. It works. Trust us.
Just trust us.
We guarantee it.
Oh, yeah. Or your money back.
It's true. Take us up on it.